on this episode of the Sorority Chat podcast.
Say, well, okay, we've got 60 people, but we only have 30 slots. And if you can articulate what do those 30 people need to be like, AI can help really go beyond, gosh, I don't like how the color of that person's shirt. I'm like, this is not the way that you want to think of this person you're going to spend the next 4 years with. Why not take a little bit more time to understand who they are, what drives them, and have a deeper relationship before you build that out?
Hey y'all, and welcome to Sorority Chat. I'm Liz Alexander, a designer and sorority alum who's obsessed with all things Greek life. My mission? To bring you real conversations, smart insights, and fun stories that help make sorority living even better. So grab your favorite beverage, get comfy, and let's chat. Hey sorority chatters! Today, we are going to talk about a topic that I think is very fun and it's incredibly relevant because AI seems to be everywhere these days. But what does it actually mean for sorority members and chapter leaders and even alumni? Today's guest is Ben Gold, and he is an AI strategist, consultant, and speaker who specializes in helping people use artificial intelligence in practical, everyday ways. Rather than focusing on futuristic predictions, Ben teaches students and organizations how AI can save time, improve communication, strengthen leadership, and prepare people for careers of tomorrow. Today, we're going to talk about how sorority women can use AI ethically and effectively, from recruitment and chapter operations to internships, job searches, and lifelong leadership. Ben, welcome to Sorority Chat.
Thank you. It's awesome to be here.
Well, I'm excited to talk about this because, I'm sure you know as well as anyone, AI can be a very polarizing topic. I think it's fascinating and I always want to learn more. And so selfishly, I'm very much looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to it too. And maybe I can give you a little bit of background on my AI journey, and then talk to you a little specifically about some of the conversations I've had in the sorority world. And so first of all, I come from a sales background, technology sales, been doing that for like 20 years. And I had also sold a product that used machine learning, which was AI before ChatGPT. And I was really excited about it. And so when ChatGPT came out, and that, by the way, so when people say, well, what is the ChatGPT moment? That was November 30th, 2022. That was the day that it was released to the world. And so on that day, within 5 days, there were 1 million users. And within 2 months, there were 100 million users. So a lot of times when we talk about this, about AI, it's been around for decades. When you think of Google search, Amazon, or Netflix recommending the next show, there were data scientists in the background that would build these really complicated algorithms that would help companies sell products. Once we got into generative AI, and again, that's the ChatGPT moment, suddenly AI was democratized for the world. And one of the things that's interesting is I made the decision very early on that within about 6 months of the release, I had decided this is the future. This is what I'm going to do. And for several years, I was like Chicken Little saying the sky's falling and people, I'm like, AI, this is changing the way we work, the way we live, the way we learn. And a lot of people looked at me just like you're a crazy guy, go find something real to do. And people would say, what is an AI strategy consultant and why would a company actually pay you for that? And so a funny story is that pretty early on, one of the first persons that I aligned with is a gentleman, Michael Ialon. He has a speaking company, Greek University, and we did a podcast together and hit it off really well. So this was like end of 2023. And he said to me, he goes, Ben, how could AI help fraternity and sorority leaders be better at what they do? And I didn't know much about fraternity and sorority leaders. So I said, well, why don't we write a book together? And I said to him, look, if you can get me 20 leaders that I can meet and I can record the conversations, I said, I can write a book for you in 2 weeks. Now, it took us 3 weeks to do it, but he was really good. He was able to get me 20 interviews. And so basically from those interviews, I was able to understand the sorority, fraternity world of mainly recruitment. Like I was trying to understand what are your current processes for finding the right people to join your organization. And I learned a lot of things about all the different organizations inside this community. So it was like I had never really done the deep dive. So that was really helpful. What was interesting, though, is that we then ended up going to, for the next 6 months, I went to a whole bunch of conferences. We did get a couple of small assignments, but it was really a little bit frustrating because when I came to the first ones and I would meet with like professors, they looked at me like I was the enemy of the state, like AI. And so I believe that academia was having trouble in 2023, where there were a number of professors that just wanted to ban it. We want it to go away. We're going to, if a student uses it, we're just going to fail them. And I said to the professors, I'm like, I said, please don't shoot the messenger. But if you don't if you don't allow or encourage your students to use this technology, they're going to be unemployed when they get out of school.
Ooh.
That I was pretty harsh on that one. I'm like, look, this is now, I believe last year I did a presentation for Southern Methodist University, TCU. I've been a guest lecturer for different initiatives. And now I think are starting to realize that, yes, this is a tool that is needed for success overall. So I think universities have understood this is not going away. There is a legitimate concern about are we dumbing our students? Are they losing their ability to think critically? And my point is that if it's taught correctly, AI should supplement critical thinking. It should not take away from it. So that's kind of my story here in the general parts, and happy to dive deeper wherever you'd like to go.
Yes. So first of all, I didn't realize when ChatGPT came on the scene, and I'm trying to remember now, like, when did I start using it? Because I use it every day. I also use some other programs like Midjourney to create images and those types of things. So I have a lot of fun with AI. So it was neat to hear from you, like, when ChatGPT really exploded and came on. And I love what you're saying about we have to teach students correctly how to use AI to help them so that we aren't dumbing them down and we're not making them inadequate in the roles that they're going to be going into. So what are some ways that AI can make a difference and help a student without kind of crippling them?
So I think part of this has to be that there's a new, so this is something where it does get a little dicey, but let's just assume that a professor's open to this. So I have several schools that I've consulted with, and one of the recommendations is to treat AI just like you would any other reference tool. So if a student fills in a project and they use AI, they should say, this is the tool I use and this is how I use it. I use ChatGPT to ideate and help me create my structure. That would be an example. So number one is to make sure that if a student does use it, they document it. Number two is to begin, I feel that the universities need to start understanding that writing has become a commodity, that used to be a way of intelligence. How do you write? There are these like I still think they're probably, in my opinion, the stupidest waste of time, these checkers that tell how much of what you've written is AI and how much is human. And I'm like, really? I said, right now, probably 90% of the content out there is AI generated. So even if I don't use an AI tool, but I'm taking my sources from what's out there, chances are I'm still going to be flagged for AI usage. So instead of us trying to flag, did you use AI? It's like saying, did you use Google search? Am I going to penalize you because you use the internet to find information? I disagree with that philosophy. So the idea would be better and I have this, I find that now where you get in this is, how do you take your ideas and truly make them refinable, understandable to your audience? Because even like right now, so a couple of things are that I've moved more into the corporate world. So I've built out an academy and I work with organizations, companies to improve their AI literacy for their employees. And the question really is, it's like, okay, now you give people AI tools, but how do you use them correctly? So one thing is I can use ChatGPT and come up with a 20-page gobble that we call this AI slop, where it's just this really long thing that goes through and nobody will read it. How do you turn that into a one-pager that everybody will read and it's truly your voice? And those are the kinds of exercises that I teach. And there's methods of truly getting your voice out there. So that's step one is I recommend for every student, regardless of whether their professor's band is use these tools. I use ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini. Those are the three main models. Claude right now I think is a little bit more powerful, but I always recommend people to start with ChatGPT and then just to really understand the capabilities. So that's the first thing, is just be curious. And what you learn this week, next week will probably change, because the industry they're coming out with more powerful models. And that is just my general part here. Now, specifically to sorority and I kind of say fraternity and sorority kind of combine, like
yes.
For recruiting. One of the things that we came up with was like, what are the areas that AI could help? Well, first of all, it can help absolutely with all kinds of messaging, social media creation. How do you make sure that your message aligns with, let's say, the history, the focus of the institution? And how do you, so that's step one, is there's a whole bunch of ways that most people use for building out, like you said, Midjourney. Now within, let's say, Gemini and ChatGPT and Claude, there's image creation that's already built in. So
yes.
That's a pretty heavy market, but you can get image creation. You can use it for building videos, for identifying your target market. So it's like, how do you get your messaging out there? That's one. Number two, during recruiting, and that was really where it was a mixed bag, where certain, or like a lot of the sororities, it was not a question about filling beds. It's more about how do you find the best matches when you go through the recruitment season.
Yes.
And this is probably my biggest frustration, because we built in, like we actually had a fraternity that we worked with, Michael and I, and we did we're helping them specifically to improve their processes. And I think the area which I don't know how much AI is used, but if you were to ask me where you could truly improve is we had this fraternity, and this was the rush season. I believe there were 500 total people that were, let's say, had said that they were interested in joining a fraternity. And what we did was we were able to actually look up their LinkedIn and their Instagram profiles. Okay. And now the LinkedIn was, for me, the most interesting. A lot of times you're looking for leadership roles. Like you need people to be the treasurer, to help take on these duties. And I was genuinely surprised that out of the 500 candidates, for example, there were probably 150 that had really, really strong LinkedIn profiles. And what I mean by strong is they had 500 connections. They maybe were freshmen or sophomores, but they already had their job. They kind of, you knew kind of where they're going. And I'm like, that's the kind of person I'd want to have as my treasurer, as my recruitment director, et cetera. And a lot of times when you look at when people are doing their profiles, it's usually like a picture and then 3 comments about that person. I said we could definitely use AI to get more data about, is this person from a personal point of view, are they a good fit, but also do they have the leadership capabilities? And I believe social media and AI can help identify the leadership capabilities, and then but then the humans have to decide, is this the kind of person I want to be a part of our organization? However, I did think that it would be a really good tiebreaker. It could be a good tiebreaker point, is to say, okay, here are 2 people, but here are some needs that we have in our organization. We like them the same. Which one would be a better for a long term? So these are ways that AI could be used. I doubt if it's being implemented that way, but those are some of the things that we had come up with that when you understand how AI can crunch huge amounts of data and can understand who you are, what you do, why you do it, then it can help you make better decisions. This is how when I have an opportunity for a new client, et cetera, I'm always using these tools to help me understand, are they a good fit? What I offer is that a good fit for them? How do I package it? How do I prep for the next call? So again, these are the kinds of ways that AI can be used.
That's a really fascinating perspective, the crunching the data and looking up the potential new members, just the way that you were saying that about potential clients for you. I hadn't thought about it in that way, but that does really help you with the legwork and help you as the human then make the decision of the best way to go forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think So that I'm speaking theoretically because I don't believe that a lot of sororities or fraternities are actually using it in the systematic ways. Because when you're talking to potential new members, there's so much information out there.
Yes.
Instagram is a little tougher because the Instagram people, it's not quite as open as LinkedIn, and therefore you kind of have to be a part of their network in order to be able to see. But what I did find were the people that did have openness, we could take who they follow and basically who they follow as being kind of their personality guidance. And I said, look, if you've got this person that you're trying to build a rapport with, then so it's kind of like, I think LinkedIn is great for the leadership part. Yes. And I think Instagram is great for the personal building of relationship. Like, who is this person? And it really depends, because if, for example, your fraternity or sorority is trying to doesn't have enough PNMs interested, then it's important to be a bit more aggressive, maybe really understand and find ways to bind and communicate. And I think there's ways to do that. And then if you happen to be one that's in demand, and the question is not finding people interested, then you use AI as a winner, as a way to really say, well, okay, we've got 60 people, but we only have 30 slots. And if you can articulate what do those 30 people need to be like, AI can help really go beyond, gosh, I don't like how the color of that person's shirt. I mean, those are some of the ways that people would make decisions is, gosh, they look a certain way, they were wearing something. And I'm like, this is not the way that you want to think of this person you're going to spend the next 4 years with. Why not take a little bit more time to understand who they are, what drives them, and have a deeper relationship before you build that out?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I understand we're speaking theoretically, but I think a smart chapter would start to put that into practice and to take advantage of the ways that AI analyzing could help them in that process. And you're right, when you talk about like, oh, the person was wearing this color shirt or so on, it kind of reminds me of like on HGTV when folks are doing the real estate shows and they're shopping for houses. And they're like, oh, I don't like the paint color on that wall, or I don't like that countertop. And you're like, that's not why you buy the whole house, right? You have to go deeper. You have to go beyond that for sure.
Absolutely. And then the other thing is that when we talk about careers, because that's a really big one, a couple of thoughts on this. So my very first foray in AI was to try to build an AI career coaching platform. So when it comes to a job seeker, AI can help you, first of all, with your resume, would help you to define what you want to do with your life, and really give you some good perspectives. Like one of the prompts I'll give people is, give me, this is who I am, this is what I love to do. There's ways you can give lots of information about yourself, and then say, give me some careers that are not going to be displaced by AI in the next 5 years. Ooh. So, and then that way the AI can kind of help you make sure that what you're doing is not going to be obsolete when you get out of school.
Yes, totally.
And that was something that I was also saying to the fraternities is having AI as helping people with their careers. That could be a great kind of speaker program that you could do for especially your juniors and seniors that become less active in the sorority, because they're really starting to think of what they're going to do afterwards. But if you can kind of put that career the way that AI helps you to define yourself, and I'm a big fan of, hey, everyone should have a LinkedIn. By the time you get out of school, you should have 500 connections on LinkedIn. If you have it by your junior year or by your sophomore year, even better, because that is, that's your connection to the world. When you're looking at an employer, that's what they're going to be looking at is this. So when I see somebody that has 132 connections, I say student. When I see someone with 500 connections, I'm like, that's a networker, that's ambitious. And it's not that much extra work to do that, some extra habits that you build.
I agree. I look at students' LinkedIns when they apply for internships or post-college jobs with me. And I also tell any students that work with me, every time we meet someone, find them on LinkedIn and connect with them, because you're just building that network and you never know what that connection could lead to. And it proves your point of like getting to that 500 plus connections. And I think it really makes them look a standout potential for the job.
Absolutely. And I think that is, and that's not really AI. It's more of, now where AI can help is you can even do your own posts. I do a lot of posts about AI in the workforce. And, like there's a lot of different trends. And when I see a trend, I'll usually talk about it. So this becomes your thought leadership. And when people complain, hey, how do I stand out? Well, you stand out there's a bunch of ways that you can stand out from the crowd. So absolutely, that's there. So let me ask you, what have we not touched upon that you'd like to touch upon?
Well, I'd love to talk about, because you mentioned this a little bit earlier, like not all professors embrace AI. I'm sure not all employers embrace AI. And so what are some things that you would suggest to help those professions, like whether it's a business owner or a college professor, to start to embrace it more? And then also, I want to talk about like the ethical side, but let's start with like how they can embrace this more and start to lean into it and dip their toe in the pond.
So when a professor point of view, so one of the things that is really, really hard, and I've talked in multiple universities, is coming up with an AI policy. And that should be done. So typically like organizations, and so I can answer on both sides, that if I'm a business or if I'm a school, you have to have AI policies. The AI policies will say, these are the tools that are available, because you are going to be looking at privacy and security. So using a personal chat GPT account and then putting in company data that's not recommended. There's a whole bunch of reasons for that. So if I'm an employer, you're going to want to have a company Teams account or enterprise account, depending on how big you are. And that way you're protecting your IP, your data, etc. And the reason I say this is that we get into this point where one professor might give you an F because you used AI. Another professor might put AI as part of the curricula. And if you have two professors in the same department, one is giving you an F and another one's giving you an A for the same work, that is a problem.
Yes.
Okay. So step one is, as a university, they need to come up with a way to standardize so students are not given different messages. Okay, so that's kind of at the university level. Now, at the professor level, the problem is a lot of the older professors that are tenured, they don't want change, and they see this as a big bother. I mean, maybe I'm being a bit mean on this one, but I feel like there's some of this of like, hey, I've got 2 more years left. I really don't want to have to change. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. And that kind of resistance I'm not particularly fond of. And I think that this is something that there's other professors that have embraced it. And I think that you do have to have that middle ground of, okay, so when you think about like professors, you've got math professors, you've got philosophy, history, you've got different subject matters, hard sciences, soft sciences. On one hand, you absolutely do not want your students to be regurgitating AI and truly not understanding. And to me, for example, plagiarism in the AI world is if a student takes the assignment, throws it into ChatGPT, whatever's spit out, it sends it back to the professor. If the student, and I have this, what we teach at companies is you are the AI supervisor. My biggest project is with Toyota North America, so help work with their enterprise AI team. And again, this is for all of my clients, but it's this idea that if you're going to send out an email, if you're going to publish something, if you're going to submit to somebody else, it is not ChatGPT's fault that you have an hallucination, that it gave you something that doesn't exist. It's your fault that you didn't verify the information, because the moment you send it out, it moves from being an AI generated, it's you. So that's laziness and incompetence for the people that just, use AI. They get something and they submit it, because that's something where a lot of teachers will tell me that they'll go to their students and say, explain to me what you submitted. And if somebody is using AI in the wrong way and they can't explain what they submitted, then that they should get an F, because that is to me where you get into this whole part of being lazy. Now, if you used AI, and a lot of times I'll use ChatGPT, then I'll throw that in Claude, ask Claude to analyze ChatGPT. Or I'll say, I don't agree with this. So I'll have models go against each other. I'll sometimes look at output and I'll say, hey, I didn't like that output, make these changes. Then you have critical thinking. And if at the end of it, going back and forth, I understand the subject faster and better, to me, that's okay. So I do believe that this is kind of where I make the distinction, is that when I submit something to a professor, I need to make sure I understand every single word that I submitted. Another thing that I've done is perhaps the thing that's more scary to me than when I have my business presentations is when my daughter comes to me and says, "Dad, I've got a math assignment," and that makes me shake. And so there, I'll take a picture. I'll throw that into ChatGPT. It's like, I don't remember y equals mx plus b. Okay, I'll throw that into ChatGPT. Explain what's going on here. It'll explain. I'm like, okay, now I remember, and then we can go and kind of move forward. So that's where I think a big underutilized part is AI as a mentor. And that's something that students and professors should embrace. And there are actually a number of programs like Khan Academy and a bunch of other education-focused tools where they use the Socratic method. So they don't tell people the answers, but they help students when they're stuck and help give them guidance to move to the next level so that if they're doing homework at 10 o'clock at night, they don't have to wake up their professor. They don't have to spend 3 hours stuck. They can move forward, but in a way where they learn what they need to learn. So does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense, and sort of leads me into what my next question was, which is, you talked about if you use chat or use AI or ChatGPT, you need to reference that. And so that's an ethical behavior in how you're using it. Is it just citing the use of these tools that needs to be considered in ethics, or are there other things as well that people should be aware of?
Yeah, ethics is a really, really tough one because you've got ethics at the large language model level. We call those guardrails. And there's two. So when we're thinking of big picture, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, these models have to have ethical guidelines so that if I want to build a nuclear bomb or a biological tool, that it needs to be able to say, gosh, people, these questions here, we're going to have to not answer them. There are, one of the challenges we've got is that you also have national security considerations. So the Chinese have their own AI. Pretty much every country is building their own models in a certain way. So that's ethical at the national level. At the company or university level, there should be certain ethical guidelines, and these should be done. And I think this is where you get the policies where, for example, there's a key here of how are students using AI. This is how we are acceptable uses. These are unacceptable uses. I would also say that, there are some issues of bias, and we'll say that there are ways where if an AI model is trained in the wrong way, it can give you output that is misleading. So when we talk about, for example, but an area that we're very cognizant about is with human resources, you do not want to use an AI algorithm to reject candidates. Okay, just like you don't at a university, you wouldn't want to use an AI algorithm that rejects people, or it can be maybe put into consideration. But there's an example with Amazon where they wanted to use AI and they gave it a sample pool. So any submission that was from a female or had women's universities or women's sports were automatically rejected because they gave it a biased pool of information. And so these are the kinds of things that you really want to be. By the way, that was terminated pretty quickly, but this is the example of you want to be careful. Like typically ChatGPT, Claude, these general large language models are pretty good, and they've, in terms of understanding this, because they've had time to get refinement. There might be specialized tools that are used, and you might want to make sure that they're in compliance. Now, again, there's other parts here. For example, you do not want to use AI to harm people, and there are examples of people using like Grok, which is Elon Musk AI, that was body shaming people. So, doing really nasty. There's some very nasty, unethical apps that are out there that will take will take a person and show a nude version of them, or will extrapolate what that would look like. And then there are also another thing that I find very unethical are these AI companion apps. I'm not sure if you've heard of that, like boyfriends and girlfriends that are virtual AI. Oh yeah, that's a big one. And especially our younger people that maybe are a bit frustrated, and now they've got this companion that understands who they are, but it's just an algorithm and it can be hacked. You can be manipulated. There are examples of people committing suicide because of their relationship with AI bots. So that's a big one that needs to be handled. So again, we're talking about AI safety and ethics. There are definitely a lot of things to be looking out for. But again, you cannot ban it. The cat's out of the bag. This is used by every company. The other thing is I don't buy into this. I've had people say, well, I don't use ChatGPT because of all the water that's consumed. And yes, these massive data centers consume a lot of energy and water in order to cool down their servers. But I don't agree with that philosophy, because the amount of energy you're saving by not using ChatGPT is so minuscule. Okay, these data, this environmental issues, they're going to be existing because companies are going to use them. It's going to be part of our military strategy. So that is a viable, legitimate concern. But by boycotting AI I don't think it's going to necessarily help somebody, unless you're, want to live out in the country or live out in the forest and not have contact with humanity. Great.
I have seen that. I've seen the post talk about the water. So it's nice to have an expert's view on that and have a little bit more information on that piece of things.
I mean, I'm look at it, this is definitely, if you're talking about, there's really three things that constrain AI expansion, and that's going to be energy. So because these data centers need massive amounts of energy to stay open. Number two is data. We've already consumed every single piece of humanity that's already been incorporated in these models. So now they have to create synthetic data so that they have more data to look at to be more perceptive and powerful. And then the third is chips capacity, the NVIDIA chips that are being built. That also kind of helps their compute power. And so those are the three things that are preventing, let's say, AI becoming all powerful. And they're all three very legitimate constraints.
On a personal level, I'm just curious, what is one task that you will not do without AI?
What would I not do? So there's so many things like I typically now, when I'm an AI first person. So when I want to travel, I'm going to definitely run that by AI, usually by ChatGPT, because ChatGPT knows me. My wife and I just got back from Europe and Morocco. So we wanted to do a little adventure. So we pretty much got all of our planning for Morocco from ChatGPT, because I explained exactly what we're looking for. So there's a lot, I think a better question is, what would I never use AI for? So like when I'm talking with my kids, my daughter will call me when she gets mad at me, or when she thinks that I'm more of an AI, talking about AI, she'll say, "Thank you, Ben Gold AI," if she feels that my responses are a little bit cold. That's where you got to think like, okay, there's moments where, you kind of just, if I'm writing an email, sometimes I will typically use AI for almost all of my emails, because I have, when I'm especially corresponding with prospects or clients, I want to have all of that in there. Now what I'm doing, is that there's just sometimes where I'm like, okay, I just need to write what I'm thinking. And it's just me, 3 lines, 4 lines, and they know it. Maybe there's a misspelling, whatever, but it's me as a human talking. So it's really hard, because I'm probably, like you said, like, what task would I would say almost anything I do business-wise, I always start with AI. I mean, that, and again, I will tell people that most of my clients, whether they're solopreneurs, coaches, small businesses, or large businesses, you can save anywhere from 4 to 15 hours a week of drudgery, So again, there is you're using your strategic thinking. And then there's things like research and content creation and stuff like that you can delegate. So why not delegate the drudgery to AI, and then your time is spent on the relationship building and those parts. And that's what I usually will teach.
Yeah, I think that is good advice. I've enjoyed this whole conversation and learning all that you've shared about AI. If there's just one thing that listeners walk away remembering, what do you hope that is?
I hope that if the listeners are students, that they will take the time, even if AI is banned, to learn the main large language models, Claude, ChatGPT, and Gemini. Be open to what it can do, even if you hate it, even if you're a Luddite. Learn what the capabilities are, because as you're preparing your careers, you need to understand the direction of this technology. And companies are going to hire you If you come in and say, I already understand Claude Code, or I understand ChatGPT, deep research, or these things I understand these tools, it's going to help you tremendously separate yourself from other job candidates.
I agree with that fully as an employer and as kind of seeing how it's changed the work landscape. Well, Ben, thank you for coming on. If people want to connect with you further after the show, what's the best way for them to find you?
Best way to find me is really on LinkedIn. I have my typically put in Ben Gold AI, and you'll be able to find me. I would say what I prefer is when people send a connection request, if you say, I saw you on this podcast, and I'd like to do this, I'll respond. There are a lot of solicitations I get of people trying to sell me tax advisory or some sort of software consulting. And I like the honesty or the sincerity. And if you have questions, happy to respond. When there's a sincere reach out, then those are the people that I definitely like to work with.
Perfect. And we'll make sure we put that link to LinkedIn in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Yeah. And one other idea is when it comes to speaking specifically for fraternity and sorority events, I have a page on Greek University where it's got all my programs and things like that. And that might be somewhere to mention in there too.
Yes, that's perfect. We're big fans of the Greek University speakers here, so happy to promote that for you.
Awesome. Okay.
Welcome to Liz's House Hot Takes. This is where I take the lessons I've learned over the last 16 years of designing Greek houses and offer you my pro tips. Here's today's House Hot Take. The heart of the sorority experience is connection. Design can encourage those spontaneous moments that build sisterhood. Layouts should make it easy to gather casually or formally. Avoid furniture arrangements that feel forced or overly rigid. Comfort and warmth matter. A space that feels inviting will get used. One that feels cold or awkward becomes dead space. A great room is designed for multi-purpose use. This is the most requested detail we have on projects right now. Multi-purpose. Everything from movie night to exec meetings to open study may need to happen in one single space. Incorporating historical pieces like photographs, awards, crests, founder images, a shadow box of badges, all of these things, both chapter specific and overall organization, gives members connection to a bigger picture beyond themselves. Thanks for listening to another House Hot Take. For more inspiration, check out the PDR Interiors Instagram or TikTok. I'm Liz Alexander, and this is the Sorority Chat podcast. Catch you next time. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're listening on a podcast platform, make sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode. And if you got something out of today's conversation, we'd love for you to leave us a 5-star review. It helps us reach more listeners just like you. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to check out this video right here or this one over here. And don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps us out. I'm Liz Alexander, and this is the Sorority Chat podcast. Catch you next time. This podcast is produced by Collier Landry for Don't Touch My Radio. Copyright Liz Alexander.